Welcome back, grade 12s. In the preceding presentation, we focused on the narrative essay, which had quite a detailed descriptive element. So our focus for this lesson will be the descriptive essay. A descriptive essay is an essay in which a writer gives a detailed description of events, a person, a setting, or a particular situation. In order for one to be a good descriptive writer, you need to use words and sentences, figures of speech, and other rhetorical devices quite effectively. So how does one go about creating a picture by using words? What are the features of a descriptive essay? The writer has to make sure that they're able to paint a picture by simply using a variety of words. This picture can be a description of a person, emotions, an object, or an event, as stated in the preceding slide. You can simply describe the object vividly, but to elevate your written piece, you need to show how your reflection is a symbolic representation of the person describing the event, their life, or society in general. You may integrate some elements of the narrative or the reflective essay when you are writing your description, and vice versa. You could include a descriptive element in your narrative essay as well as in your reflective essay. A useful technique to use when you have to describe something is to imagine that you are viewing the object through the lens of a camera. So you can start with an overview of the bigger picture, and then you zoom in, similar to what a camera does, and you describe details up close in its most minor details. A technique to also use when writing is to stretch events and details out. Often when somebody writes about an issue or a person, and then they give very little information, there is so much you can write if you focus on certain individual aspects of an object, instead of just viewing the object holistically without focusing on and breaking down each particular detail that you can focus on. Use your 5 senses to describe things in details. Think of the use of color that the object exhibits. What is its shape? Its size, the dimensions, it's big, is it small? What are the textures? Is it smooth? Is it glossy? Is it grainy? What are the sounds that you hear? What is its taste? Is it bitter? Is it acidic? Is it tongue-tingling? That being said, make sure that you choose your words and expressions carefully. Use fresh and original figures of speech and sound devices. Bring your personal experiences to life with vivid details of your reactions and your feelings. Also convince with some factual details. Just makes it more interesting. Vary your punctuation marks in the same way that has been indicated in the narrative essay. Once again, alternate sentence types. Vary the length of paragraphs if necessary. And once again, just a reminder to write from personal experiences, because then the voice of authenticity comes across very clearly. How do we describe objects, places, people vividly? One way in which you can do this is to choose vivid and graphic adjectives, adverbs, and verbs to describe things or actions in more detail. Let's take the sentence, he ran after the bus. The verb ran does not say much about how he ran, the manner in which he ran, possibly giving us a reason why he ran. If we took the second sentence, we take the second sentence, he flew after the bus. The word flew suggests that he ran extremely fast. So at least by choosing the word flew, we get a greater sense of the speed at which he moved. If we take the third sentence, he pursued the bus. The word pursued implies that he chased after the bus because there was a particular reason for it. He had a goal in mind. So as you can see, your choice of words contributes greatly to the message that you wish to convey to your reader. Another feature and skill that the writer of a descriptive essay can use is to describe events or people rather than tell the writer. What does this mean? So let's take the sentence, he was greedy. So instead of using the word greedy, you rather describe the actions of the character vividly so that the reader can see this quality for him or herself without you stating the obvious. Let's look at the sentence below. He lunged at the tartlets, stuffing them into his bulging mouth until it seemed as if his cheeks were on the verge of bursting. So what does the reader picture? The reader pictures the person's cheeks bulging literally with all the tarts that have been stuffed inside. And so based on that, one concludes then that this person is quite greedy. In addition to using loaded verbs and adjectives and describing events rather than stating the obvious, you can also populate your sentences with factual information for effect. Instead of just saying the trees grew all around the house, add some more specific information. So you're going to say the oak trees grew in a semicircle in the furthest corner of the yard. And so there we have the more detailed about the type of trees, the shape that was formed, and where exactly they are located in the yard. Obviously, this is a more vivid picture than the first sentence because we can imagine the type of trees, the kind of shade that it provided, as well as the shape that the writer described. Let's examine the two examples that are given here. The first sentence describes the Castle of Good Hope, which can be found in Cape Town. The castle lies at the entrance to the city of Cape Town. But it doesn't tell us anything else about the castle itself. The Castle of Good Hope, there's a name has been given, built in 1666 by Dutch Governor Jan van Riebeeck as a center of trade and governance, lies at the entrance to the city of Cape Town. It's the same information, but what the writer basically has included is more historical content and detail, which makes for interesting reading so that one can actually visualize that this is quite an old building which was constructed more than 300 years ago. And so it obviously does not look like any of the modern high-rise buildings. In the preceding slide, we looked at stretching descriptions so that we can make writing more evocative and so that the reader will get a clearer picture of what it is that the writer wishes to convey. So how does one stretch descriptions? You can basically add adjectives and adverbs of time, place, and manner. Let's take the simple sentence below. We stood outside for 20 minutes. In the sentence below, the writer has added an adjective. We stood outside for 20 miserable minutes. What effect is created by adding the adjective? We understand now that it was an unpleasant experience, and we see that the writer might have been quite depressed or frustrated by the situation. In addition to expanding our sentences or ideas by using adjectives, we can also use adverbs. In the sentence below, the writer has used an adverb of time to indicate when the event occurred. This morning, we stood outside for 20 miserable minutes. You are not restricted to using only one adverb or one type of adverb to expand sentences. In fact, you can use a variety of adverbs in one particular sentence. Look at the sentence now, that it has been populated with an adverb of place. This morning we stood on the pavement in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes. So the reader is given more clarity of where the event occurred. And now we expand the sentence further. We add an adverb of manner. This morning we stood shivering on the rain-soaked pavement in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes. Now, if you plot the essay that we used initially, you'll see that the first essay comprised only of 7 words, and when we added our adjectives and our adverbs of place, time, and manner, we really have a more graphic sentence which includes so much more information and presents a very vivid picture to the reader. In the text below, the writer presents a graphic description of a visit to an old age home. Note how she makes extensive use of very vivid diction and appeals to our different senses, a sense of sight, smell, taste, touch. Also note that in describing certain aspects of the character, she is also conveying very important information to us. I enter the core clinical old age home with a languid sense of urgency. Note the use of present tense, and which immerses the reader in the old age home with the narrator. As I stroll through the empty passageway, I smell the thick odor of a bland home-cooked meal and listen to the dull bombinations of television sets pulsating through each door. Finally, I reach my grey destination and knock twice on the door. "Come in, lovey," calls a mellifluous voice to me, and I creak the door open to step inside. Each time I see her is a breath of fresh air as she proudly and firmly lies beneath her colourful knitted blanket. Despite her weakness, she is strong, a brittle pillar with a halo of snow-white memories which she wears as a crown. Note she is described as a brittle pillar, and one can see this as an example of an oxymoron, because a pillar is something that is strong and firm, whereas something which is brittle is quite weak and fragile. Her hair is not mentioned, but it is described as a halo of snow-white memories. So very beautiful metaphor that is used there, and the age that she is does not affect her negatively. It seems that this individual is quite proud of having reached this very respectable age, because she wears her white, snow-white memories as a crown, suggesting that this is somebody who has to be respected because of certain achievements, or it might be that she is quite dignified. In the preceding slides, we looked at different techniques that you can use to write a vivid, detailed description. Now we get to the most important part, and that is planning your essay. In the lesson on the narrative essay writing, there is a detailed discussion on how to plan an essay, and you could refer to that. So what you can do, your first step is brainstorm your topic and identify the features of the subject that you wish to focus on. Once you've identified the different features that will be your focal point or the focal points of your essay, identify at least 4 different features, and then think of ideas to expand and describe each feature separately, and each of these features will then be used to form its own paragraph. Now let's take the topic family gatherings. It's quite a simple topic. And if you look at the table here, we have the planning. So as an introduction, you're going to make a statement that family gatherings are fun, but they can be stressful. In your body, you might mention things like the excitement of seeing everyone. Another paragraph can revolve around family traditions and conventions. Further, you can discuss different personalities in a separate paragraph. And in yet another paragraph, you can look at how these personalities basically collide. In your conclusion, must obviously link to the introduction. You can restate an opinion that you stated in the introduction, or you can reflect on future events and whether there are going to be other similar events like the one that you attended, or whatever resolution it is you have made if you are the narrator about attending events like this in the future. How are you going to hook your reader? Let's take the topic of family gatherings, and let's start with a question to engage the reader. Have you ever wondered why family get-togethers always end disastrously? So you can either start with a question, or alternatively, you can start with a vivid description. Instead of using a question, you might opt for something like a vivid description, and at the same time you use direct speech to create an authentic feel and also to establish a kind of atmosphere. Here is an extract from an essay based on the topic family gatherings. As my Aunt Fatima comes waddling to the door, we can hear her high-pitched falsetto all the way down the street. We are family, all my cousins and me. We are family, all my cousins and me. And so begins the annual circus of the Jacobs family. Note the direct speeches makes it interesting because based on what is being described, we know that Aunt Fatima must be quite a colorful character. She's singing all the way down the streets, very confident about herself, although she has this high-pitched falsetto. And the writer in the last statement says that the annual reunion of this family seems more like a circus than anything else, so one can expect a lot of drama and entertainment at this family gathering. For obvious reasons, your conclusion is as important, if not more, than your introduction, because this is probably the part that your reader will remember more vividly than anything else. And it has the potential to either strengthen or destroy the impact of an initially good essay. So I want you to please take special care as to how you are going to conclude your essays. Very importantly, link your introduction to your conclusion. Now, in one of the preceding slides, we mentioned that you can start your essay with a question to engage your reader. And the question posed there was, have you ever wondered why family get-togethers always end so disastrously? And so what we have here is a conclusion to that particular introduction. Note, you don't only link the conclusion to the introduction, but you also try to predict something about the future, or you reflect about past events, especially the one which you had recently attended. And so look at this, because, you know, the question was posed that events end disastrously. And so obviously we know that there will be controversy, there will be conflict, and your conclusion must also at least remind the reader of the conflict which has occurred and reflect on it. Everyone leaves under a cloud of embarrassment, their brows set in angry waves, grumbling to themselves that this is the last family gathering they will ever come to. And so once again, the ellipsis suggests that possibly it will not be the last reunion, and that this is just simply the pattern of all the family get-togethers and reunions of this particular family. Here is an alternative conclusion. And this conclusion links to the vivid description of Aunt Fatima as she waddles down the road. And remember, she's quite a big lady because she was waddling, perhaps a little overweight, perhaps a little tired. And so we end the essay with reference to this very colorful, dynamic woman. It reads as follows. Aunt Fatima is always last to leave, and as she shuffles out of the door, followed by a chorus of salams, she hums tiredly, "We are family, all cousins, and." And so the words that we use, once again, we've used direct speech, and they indicate absolute fatigue. Notice the diction that is used, the words like shuffles out of the door, with the chorus of salams, which appeals to our sense of sound. All of these makes for a very vivid conclusion, and we've ended the essay in the same vein that we have started. So once again, you come full circle. Below is a beautifully written introduction to an essay entitled Autumn. I want you to take note, particularly of the writer's use of particular words to appeal to our different senses, especially our sense of sight and our sense of sound. Also note how the writer has expanded on the information in each sentence to give us a graphic image of what she wishes to portray. The trees heave gently. They sigh the long, weary sigh of the weight of the ages. The whistling wind lightly eases out this fundamental exhalation, inducing low, reverberating creaks and groans from beneath the rugged ochre bark. Note particularly the use of words like sigh, creaks, and groans. Those contribute to a heavy kind of depressed mood that is created in the text. We know that autumn, this is a precursor to winter. Look at the use of the word ochre. Now, ochre is the word used to describe a reddish-brown color. And we know that when leaves fall, they are brown in color, so it is a reminder once again that it is autumn and that the trees lose their branches and that things die during this time. Obviously, the way in which the writer describes the trees suggests to us that this is not going to be a topic which deals with a light-hearted issue, but there is rather a suggestion that this will be quite a weighty topic that the writer will discuss. Notice the sounds like creaks and groans and whistling, those onomatopoeic words, which, it places us in the midst of the narrative. And the use of present tense verbs contributes to that sense that as a reader, we are experiencing the same sight that the writer is actually describing and experiencing. That being said, study the examples that have been given, mimic some of the skills that have been used, and for yourself, practice as much as you can, and once again, find an ear, an eye of either a friend or an educator, and ask them to comment on your writing skills. The only way in which you're going to master this art, remember, is by writing extensively and more so, reading as much as you can. Enjoy.